Hey, welcome to the On Sunday podcast. We are coming to you live in the TNLC
We're not
podcast
live.
studio. Yes, we are. This is currently what's happening in our lives.
In our lives, but not their lives, so we're not coming to them live.
That's why there's a great comedy special from Dimitri Martin called Live, parentheses, at the time.
Okay, so restart that and say live at the time.
We are live at this time in the TNLC podcast studios. I'm joined by my co-host, Chael Branda, Executive Director of Trinity New Life Church. Say hello to the people, Chael.
Well, I am not on an AM talk show,
This is clearly an FM talk show. An AM talk show would be telling you all about coming up on NPR. We've got how the Visco girls have saved all of the turtles with their yeets and whooping.
I'm Chael Branda,
Ooping,
and I am
sorry.
joined by my incredibly excited and probably over-caffeinated co-host Clayton Bell, lead pastor of Trinity New Life
it's just
Church.
hitting.
It's just now starting. This is you just coming in strong because
Yeah, it's later.
you need to make up for it. So
Yeah. So what we're going to do is we're going to take the Sunday sermon. We're going to dive a little bit deeper. We're going to apply it. We're going to answer some questions, and we're going to talk a little bit about our work experience. All right. So let's dive into it. Hit the bumper music. Oh, wait, we don't do bumper music. Never mind. Sorry. We just listen to so many podcasts. Also, if you want to get stamps.com/Beyond Sunday, you can get that code. What's our Starbucks
you can
free?
follow us on Instagram at Trinity New Life. You can also email all of your thoughts and concerns, and I will forward them right on to my co-host, podcast at trinitynewlife.com.
That's true. Okay, so week 2 of 167, we found out some really interesting things.
Lots of interesting things.
Number one, that if you take 95.5% and you add 0.5%, that only gets you 96%.
That is true.
So we had to say it was 4.5%.
I still wonder if your math's right on that.
No, wait. We'll get there.
Okay.
4.5% of your week plus 95.5. That now gets to 100. So at least we're getting to 100.
Yes.
Then I had 2 pilots, which I'm glad because they're pilots. You want the pilot to be exact.
To know the math.
To say, actually.
1 divided by 168 is not 4%.
But I don't think it's 1 divided by...
If you're looking for 1 hour out of 168 hours, yes, it's 1 divided by 168 hours.
Look, I was an English education major.
First service, I turned around and looked at your dad. I said, that math's not right, is it?
Well,
And
how come he hasn't said anything about it?
because we of other things happening on a Sunday, and neither one. But I was like, I don't think that math's right. He's like,
After last week,
and then
2 weeks ago, the first Sunday, Mason says, "Oh, I meant to tell you this after every one of the services, and I forgot." And I was like,
we hold high levels of mathematical skills here. We hold high levels.
"Hold high levels."
high levels.
You said
Anyways,
"whole high." I did not know what
we
you
hold
said.
high levels of accountability when it comes to math and numbers around here because obviously 2 English majors would want that. However, there's a lot of things happening on a Sunday, and checking your math is not one of the things that I was
Well, I want to
wondering
thank
about.
Chris and Mike Beatty, who
Congratulations.
just knew
Thank you.
Christianette and Mike Beatty, who just heard it and went, not right.
Not right.
And so I believe it is 5.8% of your week. That means that 93.2% of your week is not at church. 93.2%.
I still think that math's wrong, but
No, 5.93.2. Put in 93.2.
No. 1 hour out of 168 hours gives you 0.01.
No, that's not 0.01. This is terrible podcast.
Anyways,
So we talked about
somebody do the math for us.
So
and
we
let us
talked
know.
about doing it at work.
Yes.
It has to be under. It has to be under 1%.
Right.
So it's going to be closer to like 0.5, 0.6%, 0.6%, not 5
Okay.
point. Yeah, that's what it is. It's
0.6%.
not. It's 0.6%
There you go.
basically.
That,
So
yes.
it's 99.4%. Whatever. You guys are stupid. So tired of this conversation. Should have just called the series "With Everything" and never said the stupid math. Anyways, I'm gonna make new sermon art. We'll be right back after the break. So we talked about work. about honoring God at work, not worshiping God through work, that you have to understand the work that you're doing and how it can bring honor and glory to God. And I mean, I probably went more into it than I really should have, or maybe could have, but there's no way to like, what about this? What about, people were like, what about this? And what about this? It was like, I cannot hit everything.
Right.
I mean, we're spending, somebody said, what about single moms? Well, we're going to spend all of next week's message. The February 16th message is all about home life. I understand that. Again, students, I was trying to give something there to be able to say, every time I insert work, use school, which I do think.
I think that applies. Yeah, absolutely.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
But a lot of students even are going to start having jobs, even if they're part-time jobs, they're not 40-hour-a-week jobs. And so we talked about what do you need to redeem, what do you need to receive, and what do you need to reject in business practices. And if you don't think about that, then you're going to, as we've been using this scripture, you're going to fit into the world, fit into the culture around you without even thinking about it. And that's what we do not want to do. And so then we talked about you got to work hard and you got to work well. You have to be skilled and talented and actually demonstrate that skill and that talent.
Right. I was really excited about this week because this idea.
You must not have been in the first service.
What?
It just was like, oh, you were in the first service.
I was in the first service. I was in the first service.
Seemed very excited about
the
this
first service was a rough room. Anyways, I think that
might have been the preaching. Let's be honest.
I think that I was excited about this week because you said at the top of the message that we spend more time at work or commuting to work and that mindset of things than we do sleeping a lot of times, and that is a very true statement. And so to put all of those things and understand that when we talk about with everything, we're talking about what we do with our work to figure out how to not just worship our work, but worship at work, which is what was one of the lines that you had in the message. And then to have this concept of the first job is gardening, Adam, but that happened in Genesis 1. Like, and right. to have this understanding that God actually created us to work is important. That I think that's a very, and to take that.
Work is before the fall.
Right. Work. Yes. Work is in Genesis 1. So it's before sin enters the world, before, like, one of the things that we were created to do was to take the raw materials and put them into practice for the humans to flourish here in the world. And this concept, and to understand, okay, well, if that's what is innately in every single one of us, how can we do this well? How can we do this hard? How can we be the best? I said this in my discipleship group this morning, like, as Christians, we really should be the examples of working hard and working well in what we do, because it's how God created us. People who don't understand faith, don't understand Christianity, and should not be the ones that are setting the cultural standard for the best practices in your job. One
of the things that got cut from the message because it just wasn't going to get the proper due, and I didn't want to just gloss over it, is 1 Corinthians 15, where Paul, the apostle, says that I work harder than anyone else, but not me, but the grace of God that's inside of me. And I always think that that's such a great verse as a reminder that we should work harder than everybody else around us. Now, we're going to balance that with a message on rest. Soon.
Yeah.
But that's what we kind of talked about at the end of the message about being unbalanced. Are you leaving?
I was sitting on my foot and my foot started falling asleep, but I couldn't feel I guess I'm short and I'm trying to get the height on this.
So you do have to be able to lean into work when you're at work, and you should work really hard there, and you should be really focused there. You should not, what I have at least observed, and this is maybe in our generation, maybe it's not the same in younger generations, is that you can find people, and this might be maybe then more folks in a more charismatic bent, who will not always work as hard because they're expecting God to do it for them, and God's favor should do it for them, rather than God's going to do it with me in a mutual interaction. And I think that verse from 1 Corinthians is a reminder that, no, we need to work really hard. We should work harder than others, and that effort and excellence should be matched by those who do not have the grace of God. Then with the grace of God and the favor of God, that might be where there can bring about promotion and elevation and favor. Yeah. But we don't rely on favor and grace to overcome a lack of hard work. And we don't just sit around waiting for God to just snap his fingers. And just elevate us when we haven't actually produced.
And we talk about this idea of this I think there's two sides to this coin. Of one, in our work, we make the conscious decision to accept a job. Like we apply, we do these things. Like so when we're in these
nobody says I hate my job that I chose.
Right.
They just say I hate my
just
job.
say I hate my job. And so like you have the
that I volunteered for, that I applied for.
You chose these things. So ask yourself when you make those decisions, were you following the Holy Spirit? Were you following God when you made that choice? So then when you're in these things and you're having these frustrations or you feel like I hate my job, to go, okay, God, what are you trying to teach me in this season? Who are you trying to affect in my surroundings in this season? Who do I need to be here for in order to draw somebody else closer to you? In order to draw, like maybe it's to bring, to redeem a practice that is in that industry. Like ask God, okay, maybe it's frustrating because God's put you there to change the atmosphere that you're in. So like ask that question. And then to understand on the flip side of that, are you frustrated or do you hate your job? Because I dislike it when people use that term. But to go, okay, is God putting a holy discontentment in you in order to not get you settled where you're at, in order to move you to the next step, in order to move you to these things? And understanding how the Holy Spirit and how God comes into
either a new position inside of that vocation or maybe to a new vocation.
To a new vocation completely. Like
maybe it is time to move on.
Right. And I think both of those are very true ways that God works within our work. So it is so important for us when we do go into our vocational careers, these 40 plus hours that we put in, to go, okay, God, how are you directing this? How are you speaking to me in this? How can I give you all of this aspect of my career and work and be able to say, okay, God, it's yours. Move within it the way you want to move within it. And I think that's so important. And I think that that's why when we talk about with everything, all this 168 hours that we're given, that work was such an important, and maybe it was, you used the term on Sunday, like this might be boring or practical.
Anytime
maybe
a
it
message is using the phrase predatory lending practices.
Sure, yeah, like
it's on fire.
It's going to be a choo-choo. Anyways, I think that, but it's such an important thing. And it is something, again, I'll self-admit that I might tend to lean more towards the workaholic side of things. So work is just fun for me. Like I enjoy working. So it is maybe that, and that's probably some of the passion that I had for this, but I was really excited to, and even to hear people, like, I know you said that, but people coming out of it going, yeah, that was really, I needed to hear that. I needed to know, I needed to be reminded that I'm in a position that maybe has these practices that I need to look at, and how do we do these types of things? So,
okay, so we had a few questions.
Yep.
Or if there's any questions that got raised at your discipleship group, and then.
Yes. Okay. Go on. Sorry.
And then we're gonna bounce. We're gonna talk a little bit about work experience.
So we did get a couple questions. The first question was they wanted you to finish your story. So you shared a story Sunday about when you were working for More.
Yep.
More Consulting.
I actually don't know. At the time, it was More Communications Group, and then they have changed. Now it's just simply More.
Okay, that's what you call it, More, when we're having conversations.
Yeah, that's what.
So then I'm always like, is there a rest of this, or are you just shorthanding for me?
It was. There's been a lot of additions, and so they've just dropped all that, and it's just More.
Okay, well,
I think I'm at the More Group.
It's not More, but it's
MOORE.
It's actually less. But anyways, you shared the story about when you first started and how you were answering phones and somebody told you to tell them I'm not here,
right?
Which was an obvious falsity because they were standing in front of you. So the question was, what happened after? Like, so you walk us through what you did when they said to tell the person on the phone you weren't there, and then what happened after. Give us some of the end of that.
I mean, I wasn't in the office. Wasn't answering the phone in the office of the person who they were being asked for. So it wasn't like I was standing right next to them. And so I just walked back to my desk where that was the case. And I picked up the phone and I said, they're not available to come to the phone right now. So they didn't hear me make that comment.
Adjustment.
And I don't know that they necessarily would have been upset about that. I mean, the bigger thing for them was they
didn't want to take the call.
I mean, I did have a moment where I was sitting there at the desk going, I can't say that. What do I say? And that's when I came up with the phrase, like, I didn't invent the phrase, but that's when the phrase came to mind of, oh, they're not here right now. And this is not to say that I worked in some kind of shady organization. I think that's kind of that's one of the points is like, I didn't work in any kind of shady business or shady organization that was lying to clients and being duplicitous or anything like that. It was actually an incredible work environment. This person that was having me do that, were obviously, higher in the org chart than I was at the time. That's why I was answering the phone for them. But the people who were the actual bosses that I had are still some of the VP who we worked for is still perhaps the greatest boss I have ever had, and was incredible. And what an unbelievable, work environment, all those kind of things.
Yeah.
But I think that's kind of the point is you can be in a place where people are a healthy work environment where people are not asking you to cut corners, not asking you to do things like that. And then you kind of come in and you go, well, wait a minute. We still have these kind of things. And you go, but it's part of this larger organization where everything's fine. It must be fine too. I don't think this matters for sound. It just bothered me.
Go on.
That was a practice. So, just something to think about. It's just something to be aware of. That just, I don't know that I was like, hey, I did not say that. Like, I didn't do anything like that.
Well, and that's what the memory verse that we have right now that we're challenging everyone to memorize in Romans 12.
Here's what I want you to do, God helping you. Take your everyday, ordinary life. You're sleeping, eating, going to work, walking around life, and place it before God as an offering.
Right. Go into verse 2. Can you do verse 2?
Embracing what God does for you is the best thing that you can do for him. Don't become so well adjusted to the culture around you that you fit into it without even thinking.
Like that, and I think that's where we get in these positions.
You always got to think.
We get into these jobs where it's just like, it's not a bad job. Like, they're not asking me to lie. So we just do things without thinking. And I think when it comes down to that particular story and some of these moments of like, hey, don't disengage your brain. Don't disengage your faith from what you're doing in
I just read
your
in John
job.
14 this morning where Jesus is talking about the Holy Spirit's going to come and he's going to remind you of all the truth that I have told you. And being in a position to be reminded of that truth, you need to be relying on the Holy Spirit to be doing that. I think that's really important.
Then the second question that we had gotten asked was the concept of, you talked about being distracted on Sundays, but speaking specifically to our phones and how our phones distract us from work. What do you think, how do you think that plays into this idea? Do you think Christians should be more sensitive to how we're using our phones at work? Do you think like that kind of...
Yeah. Okay. So I had a couple people who were like, you know what you should talk about? You should also talk about phones. I was like, I did talk about phones. I just didn't say the word phones.
Yeah.
I mean, I said Instagram, which can only be on your phone.
You can get on the web now. Go on. Say, guys. Go on.
You're not going if you're looking at it. And I was like, I did talk about that. Were you on your phone when I was talking about it? Is that why you were distracted? But that's part of it, is there are constant distractions. Sometimes it's going to be your phone. And that's why I went on an entire rant about you need to be violent. You need to do violence to violently diligent about what notifications go through your phone.
Yeah.
That was me talking about your phones. I'm looking at the camera. I'm looking at the screen, not the camera. Look at the camera.
Because everybody tells you, like, and this
check your notifications. Yes, they're always there.
Well, and you open your phone to do something, like I'm going to respond to a text, or I'm sending a text to a client, and then, in your watch, you're going to send a text to your client, and suddenly a notification comes up, and then you've gone from what you intentionally went to do to the notification that is, and now we have things on our wrists that alert us to.
Well, I've always been someone. I've always loved the most technologically advanced phone. I did not get a first generation iPhone. I was like, 3GS? No apps. No, the 3G was my first one. I did not get the iPhone because I was like, excuse me, it has no external expandable storage. There's no apps, and it's a closed system that's just anti anything I think of. I was not an Android guy.
This was before he drank the Kool-Aid. So go on.
It was before Android's phones were any good. I was a Trio 650 guy.
Oh,
Trios were awesome.
Anyways,
those were so great. But all the things that I did not, other than expandable storage, all the things I did not like about Apple did change. They had an open ecosystem. They got apps, all that jazz. And but I never allowed push notifications for email. I have never allowed that.
Yeah.
I have gone through, and almost every time something says, "Can we send you notifications?" That's in the words of Randy Jackson. That's a no for me, dog. I I'm going to be very careful
Intentional.
about that. No Facebook. I don't even have Facebook as an app on my phone anymore. I have Facebook Messenger, but no notifications on that.
Right.
I barely even. Almost every response to a Facebook message is, "Can you please email that to me? I will forget this."
Right.
And if they don't, I just forget it.
I really wish Facebook Messenger had some kind of like auto reply
Yeah.
that I could just set up to be like.
You can turn it off,
Right.
which I've considered,
Yeah.
but there are some helpful things with it. But yes, I really wish it had an auto reply with the way pages do. And so what you have to do is, okay, so this is something that we've done in our office is we have investment trackers. We don't have timesheets. Almost half of our employees are hourly, half of our employees are not. So we don't do timesheets for that necessarily. They do. Our hourly employees have to keep track of their time, obviously, but we have investment trackers because I don't want you to spend your time. I want you to invest your time.
Yeah.
So we have this sheet that for the first 90 days of 2020, we're asking everybody to fill out, where you are writing down the activity in 15-minute increments. You have to write things down, 15-minute increments, what you're doing, what level of focus you had during it, and what level of energy it brought to you. Now, those are both scales of -2 to +2 because you can't go -10 to +10. That's just
That's
too
way
arbitrary.
big. Yeah.
So what were you doing? How long were you doing it for? How much focus did you have during it? Because if you go, well, I did this for 30 minutes and I had a -2 focus, like, well, could that have taken you 15 minutes?
Right.
And when that was a practice, we had it more because we had to bill clients for all of our time. And if you weren't billing a client, you were in a sense billing more for your work.
Right.
So you had to do that, and you had to put it into the system in 15-minute increments. And what it always made you do was, let me just work a little bit more into this 15-minute increment, or like, I could be distracted, but let me wait, and let me just have let's say at the end of every hour, let me check social media rather than ding, ding,
Yeah.
ding,
Yeah.
ding. There are some folks now that will talk about the way that we are working distracted and such that. Like Carrie Newhoff is a guy we've mentioned before. I think he keeps his phone permanently on Do Not Disturb.
Yeah, he does.
And that's probably why he didn't respond to your messages when he was here.
Maybe.
He stayed at the Holiday Inn across the street. I was like, what are you doing? I'm in Orlando. Here would have been my question. Can I drive over and take you to lunch? Like, that would have been my question. I know where you are right now. I know I can see you.
That's really scary, psycho. But anyways, go on.
But I think what it does is it helps you to focus on, like, wait, what am I doing right now? What have I been doing? I think there's so many times where you go, wait, what have I been doing? And it's okay to be on your phone. And I mentioned this in one of the messages. There are times where, because my job can be a lot more flexible, where I've had to say to Kelly, like, when I say I can't talk right now, it's like, I need to be focused. If I'm writing, if I'm in a meeting or something like that, there's one things where I can't get to it. It's like, I could get to this, but it would just be a distracted time. She knows that that's not because I don't want to talk to her. It's because, hey, I just need to be focused right now. And there's an understanding of that. She knows I'm not like, back off, you're annoying. Why would you ever text me? It's like, hey, this is not a good time for this. And I've tried to encourage her to tell me that same thing when she's trying to be focused on writing a message or working on some stuff for discipleship group. And if she's like, I can't talk right now, just say, like, I can't talk right now. I don't know that. We assume that there's an instant connection for people. We use a technology called Slack to communicate within TNLC. One of the things we've really been pushing people is to set statuses. So people know, wait, talk back, talk back, talk back. Right now, both of our statuses should say that we're not available because we've put it on our calendar and it auto syncs with our calendar. So I think you have to very much work intentionally. How do I work diligently? And if you don't know that, an investment tracker, which you don't have to, well, can you send me that? Like, just get a pad of paper. That's how I used to do it more. I would write the time on the left of the margin of a line rule paper, and on the right side of the main break, I would just write what I was doing and the client that it was for. So you don't have to have anything fancy. You just have to know what you're doing. Like, how distracted, how focused was I during this? A lot of jobs, you have to pop back and forth in different focuses.
Right.
So those would be the two.
I think that if anybody is wanting to increase in their leadership or increase in just their productivity, that's the number one thing any high impact leader is going to tell you is to look and see what you're allowing into your life and your day.
Yeah.
With our phones, we both have done violence to our notifications and our phones, but even like Clayton, if you're watching YouTube, showed his Apple Watch. Like I got
Oh
one.
yeah, let's talk about Apple Watches.
I got one for Christmas, and the first thing I did with my notifications is like, do not mirror my phone. I'm even more selective on my watch than I am with my phone. So the only I really only have 2 apps that actually notify me on my watch. I've got text messages, which thank you Apple for being able to DND certain text chains on my phone. So like those don't even half of my text messages don't even go don't even go to my watch. But the but that was a huge with the watch. I was like, well, now I'm even more.
Mine is Sunday mornings are the only time that I do not have it in airplane mode.
Oh, that's good.
Oh, when I sleep, so because I do sleep tracking.
Mm-hmm.
Kelly goes, "How did you sleep?" And I can't answer the question
until you looked at
Good. She goes, "Can't you tell me about how you feel?" I go, "No, I have to know the numbers." No, Sunday mornings, and that is because when I'm not preaching, because I don't want to have my phone, and there's a lot of times that there's communication going on between the teams, or like, hey, we need to adjust this. Can somebody pay attention to this, or what's happening here? And I don't want to be picking up my phone over and over and over again. Right. I have to when I'm going to respond, but sometimes I can just kind of keep it, look at do this, look at my watch, and keep engaged and know what's going on, but not have to be pick up, because I know, I would assume that when I'm picking up my phone and doing that, the people around me who can see that are going, I wonder what's going on. Right. So I'm trying to keep that minimal, but other than that, it's on airplane so that it doesn't ding.
That's good.
It became one of those things, even with text messages. If you want to figure out the time that an Apple Watch dings the most, there are 2 times. Number 1, when you're in a meeting, and number 2, when you're driving. Those are the times that you are going to get the most amount of text messages, particularly group text messages that will have 75 text messages in a 2-minute span.
It's a very, very true statement. I got up Sunday doing something, and my watch suddenly going. And again, I don't have very many people. The only people that really have access to my watch is like my family. My daughter is sending me all of these messages, and then the last message, she sent like 7 or 8 messages, and then the last one was like, "Oh, I guess you're on stage right now and kind of busy, huh?" And it was like, "Thank you for noticing that." But it is the second you go to do something, suddenly everybody wants to talk.
I forgot to turn my watch off in one of maybe 2 of the messages. I always go mute, and I actually set it to theater mode so that when I'm turning it over, the face doesn't come on. And I forgot to do that, I think, in the second service, which is when something was happening, the mouse on the computer. And my vroom, 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 and I just took it off and put it on the thing. And I was kind of waiting for like, and it didn't do it, thankfully. And then in the third service, I just forgot as well, but I turned it on mute. That's when you were letting Ashley and I know that you spilled coffee all over yourself.
Well, that's
so the only other text messages that I get on Sunday mornings when I'm preaching are from Mike Branda. And they are completely without context. I think we've talked about completely without context. Because he's like, "Wow, look at that!" And I was like, "What?"
I was preaching in the moment. Anyway,
they're normally really funny, like observations, or like, but I'm just like, I have to like recreate the moment with him after the service. But I'm like, "Oh, okay, yes, that was really funny. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, okay, I do know what you're talking about there." So, all right, let's not make this too long. First job,
like actual employer
job,
the
government knew you were doing
a Chinese restaurant. I answered the phones and took orders for a Chinese restaurant.
Did you have? Now this 15. Was a long time ago. Okay, so that was 23 years ago.
20. Anyways, go on.
Did you ever do a maybe now regrettable, culturally inappropriate accent when you answered the phone in a Chinese restaurant?
No.
Okay.
No, because the point was that I didn't have an accent and I was answering the phones.
Hello.
So my name is Chael Branda. They wanted that. But I did learn how to play Chinese poker and could kill the...
play Mahjong? Mahjong tiles?
I didn't do Mahjong tiles. It's a card game. I call it Chinese poker. I'm sure there's a much more technical name. But we would come in early because they would feed us dinner. So we'd come at 4 because dinner started at 5. And they would have like a table full of food. And we'd sit around family style and eat dinner and then play poker. And I would clean the kitchen staff. Did you just randomly
apply for this job?
No, a friend of mine, her dad owned the restaurant. And... they needed somebody who could answer the phone and actually like take orders, and so that's what I did. I
made a whole movie about that.
I didn't work there for very long. I only worked there for before her dad sold he actually sold the restaurant. So I only worked there for about maybe 6 months.
And then what?
But it was the very first thing. And then I got a job at a coffee house. Duh. Like, where else would I work?
Okay, coffee house, and then
Joffrey's Coffee. Then from Joffrey's, I worked part-time fulfilling orders for a family friend who did teleprompter work for teleprompters. He had a software company, so I would just go in the afternoons and fulfill orders and send out their product, and then graduated. I worked at the coffee house for 3 years.
That was during college or
that
during
was
high
school?
That was high school.
I was sophomore, junior, senior year of high school. Graduated, went off to college, had a really good scholarship and really good money, so I didn't have to work in college until I got married, and then I had to have a job. So look at that. Stop.
And then, okay, so did you immediately as a teacher?
Then I jumped into ministry life. My first job in
ministry,
college
then teaching
was as a church admin and nursery. Like they had a preschool at the church, and so like in the mornings I did the before care until 9 o'clock, and then from 9 until 3 I was church admin, and then from 3 to 6 I did the daycare there, and then that was while I was engaged and got married, and then very quickly we found out we were having Michael, and the story. Then I went home for 4 years. I was home.
But then you also...
And then I started teaching when Michael started going to kindergarten is when I got my teaching.
But when did you work at Harborside?
That was during... So while I was
Were you also teaching at the same time?
Yeah,
Okay.
I was teaching all at the same time. So,
it wasn't,
yeah. Harborside they paid both Mike and I. Mike oversaw youth worship, and I oversaw like youth missions and did so we got like a stipend pay for that period of time because we were both doing stuff within the youth ministry. So what was your first job?
Arby's.
How old were you?
16, because I could drive there.
See, I was 15. See, so...
Yeah, no, 16, I could drive there. And then I got promoted at one point to unit trainer.
Ooh.
And I then worked at Blockbuster.
Which was your favorite job ever?
I did really enjoy working at Blockbuster. A family friend helped to get that job. And I learned I could repair tapes. This was one of my favorite things, was I could repair. And you'd get tapes they were pushing it to the very limit of how much could fit on the VHS. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the reasons why they would break. And so when I would go to fix it, I would take out a bunch of like all the previews and all the commercials and stuff, and then kind of cut it and put it back together and tape it and put it back together. I really enjoyed that. I got to learn. That's where I got to learn so many movies. And then I did that until I went to college. And then I don't think I worked... Freshman year or so. Freshman year, I came home. My freshman year, Christmas break, I laid tile for 3 weeks.
There you go.
That was not good at that. Did not enjoy that. I also worked, and then one summer between freshman and sophomore year, I worked at Blockbuster again and Toys R Us. No benefits. I mean, like, 10% off toys.
Did you work retail during the holiday season?
No, it was the summer.
Oh, okay, summer.
I mean, I was just stocking. I worked a register every now and then.
There was a season while I was at the church as an admin, right before Mike and I got married, where I worked Target holiday season. So I worked like Black Friday, Christmas, because I was just needed some extra money, and I will admit that I think everybody should have to work retail the holiday season at least once in their life, because it makes you much more grateful for like putting up with people.
I had to work at Blockbuster on Christmas because people rent movies on Christmas.
I believe that.
I answer the phone and I'd say, "Welcome to thank you for calling Blockbuster. Yes, we're open today." And people go,
"Oh, okay.
Okay.
Click."
Yeah, that was basically it. Yeah, I worked it there. And then during college, I want to say junior. Oh, man, I can't even remember all these years. No, it must have been end of my sophomore year. Sophomore year, I got a job whole second semester of my sophomore year, because it was during I remember on my birthday week, I remember having to do this during over spring break. I worked at the FSU bookstore. I worked outside. Mm-hmm. I was the guy who took your back. So you used to, when you go to like a college bookstore, you can't take your backpack in, so in case you steal books. So I would take your backpack and I would give you a number. And so I was basically paid to sit outside and do my homework. You were their valet. Yeah, I was the backpack valet. And I did my homework.
Hey, I mean...
And then that's where I got invited out to a campus ministry meeting. Mm-hmm. I was working that when I got invited out to a campus ministry meeting that turned out to be Victory Campus Fellowship, which became Victory Campus Ministries, which became Every Nation Campus. So that's how I got connected, was I was working at that job. And then I worked at a pizza place. This was the summer between my sophomore year and junior year because one of the many times I have broken my left foot.
Yeah, let's not go through the broken bones in your...
That was, okay, so that was that. And I worked at the pizza place, and I didn't make pizzas. I never really tried. I could make, we had single slice, on almost French bread, thick bread.
Yeah.
Could do that. And then what that job was, that was a local pizza place. That wasn't like a chain. So we would call all of the other local food places in Tallahassee. We would call Guthrie's. We would call Chubby's. We call all these places and be like, what do you guys want? We want 2 pizzas like this. And we'd be like, okay. They're like, what do you guys want? And we would just switch food. And it was
great.
It was fantastic. It really was.
There you go.
And then I worked for a place called B. Merrill's. There actually was a Barry Merrill, and there was only 2 of them, but they had the best wings. They had absolutely this huge, giant wings. And when I would get a 50% discount. And so with me or whoever was with me, so Adrian and Crawford and Ross Brandon would always love to come and sit and eat and Adrian, he's like, it's a Roy Rogers. And I'm like, it's a Shirley Temple. It's just Sprite and grenadine. So I'd be like, one Shirley Temple. And then after that, went into campus ministry, then worked for the church, worked for a marketing and public relations firm for 2 years, then went back to work for the church, and then planted the church. But even while I never had another job while I was doing this in terms of I was going into an office, but I did have a website building business on the side. So I still can do that, but I don't want to do that. No, I don't like to do that.
Should do that?
Anymore. So
that's true.
That's the job backgrounds for the 2 of us. If you have any questions or want to randomly just share what jobs you have or currently have, you can send those into podcast@trinitynewlife.com, or on Instagram, you can
follow us at Trinity New Life. Hey, YouTubers, comment and let us know what your first
like
job
and subscribe,
was.
smash
I
that
would
like button.
love to know what your first job was.
Yeah.
So.
What was your first job? All right. Let's see you guys later.
Have a great week, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.